I think they're in for a shock, because the British people aren't stupid. And as the way you set it out, we can see precisely what they're up to, and they will be held to account.
And then there's the Keir Starmer, who made a series of promises when he stood to be leader of the Labour Party, or pledges as he called them, and not only broke them, but in some cases claimed he'd never made them.
That unless we started deporting people that illegally crossed the English Channel, the numbers would simply go up. Over the course of the last 2 days, 1,100 people have crossed the English Channel.
Could it get any worse for Starmer? You bet it can. The Labour leader seems to be sinking deeper into the political quicksand with every decision he makes. How did we get here, you ask? Well, Starmer's latest blunders have left everyone shaking their heads, and just when you think he's hit rock bottom, he finds a way to dig even further. Keir Starmer, the man who promised the world to Labour supporters but seems to be fumbling every step of the way. From botched policies to party infighting, Starmer's recent missteps are causing his political downfall, and it's making things so much worse for him and the Labour Party.
Mission-driven government, an answer to the widespread call to fix the fundamentals, a long-term plan to unlock our pride and our purpose. A profound statement of intent.
A profound statement of intent, except the intent is to ruin Britain, and there's no real positive growth. Remember all those promises Keir Starmer made when he took over as Labour leader? Voters were told they'd see real change, a new direction, and an end to the chaos under the Conservative government. Yet, here we are, and nothing much has changed. Starmer seems to have turned into the political equivalent of a used car salesman promising top-of-the-line performance but delivering a rusty old jalopy. We're seeing him make massive U-turns in real time. Every promise shattered and all trust lost.
The Keir Starmer, who made a series of promises when he stood to be leader of the Labour Party, or pledges as he called them, and not only broke them, but in some cases claimed he'd never made them.
Is it a pledge that these industries will be in your manifesto for nationalisation?
Yes, it is.
I didn't make a commitment to nationalisation. I never made a commitment to nationalisation.
Some of those lies were just petty.
Two-tier Keir, says softy, or a petty liar. Have your pick, the options just keep growing. His approach to leadership is now more confusing than one of those late-night infomercials that leave you wondering, what exactly am I buying here? Voters who once believed in his polished rhetoric are starting to realise that behind the scenes, Starmer's political engine is sputtering. However, that's just the start and things just got spicier. Starmer just royally screwed himself over, and the Labour Party.
Rewrite the rules of our economy, fix the foundations so we can build a new home. A country where growth not only comes from the enterprise of working people, but where growth serves the interests of working people.
He had the audacity to give this speech, posturing as some sort of saviour of the working people, while actively passing horrible economic policies. Just think about it, not only is he taxing you more, he's standing there as if you ought to be thankful for it. Then came his second screw-up when he refused to condemn his party member for making ridiculous comments. Since, as the leader, you're supposed to call people out for their idiotic words. Here's what happened.
We cannot get any worse than a bunch of scum, homophobic, racist, misogynistic, absolute vile, banana republic, vile, nasty, Etonian, piece of scum.
Should she apologise?
Well, look, Angela said those words. She takes a different approach. To me, we have different approaches to how we get our messages across. It's not language that I would have used.
Language you wouldn't use? Debatable, but fine. However, Sir Keir, when your party member is calling names like that, she needs to be called out and condemned. This isn't rocket science. As a politician, you cannot alienate people like this. Of course, screw-up Supreme Starmer took a soft stance on it, and now the voters are changing ships. You can't really blame the voters though. Starmer promised a compelling utopia. The only problem was that he lied about that. Now, one after another, he's caving in on core issues, starting with his promises for the economy.
Today is an important day because all ambitions, particularly ambition to change your country for the better, have to start with first steps. Step one, economic stability. Now, this is the very foundation of economic growth. Tough spending rules, yes, to keep inflation, taxes, and mortgages low. Because if you lose control of the economy, it's working people who will pay the price.
Here's the big one, the economy. It's no secret that Starmer hasn't exactly been the poster boy for sound economic policy. He said the working people would not pay the price. Taxes, energy bills, mortgages would remain low. But the reality couldn't be further than this. In fact, he explicitly promised that taxes will not go up. But now we're looking at a potential £2,000 tax increase.
And I'm clear that I'm going to keep cutting people's taxes, as we now are.
Can we just,
you want to put everyone's taxes up by £2,000, and this is really important.
Yeah.
Independent Treasury officials have costed Labour's policies, and they amount to a £2,000 tax rise for every working family. No, this is important. Mark my words. Labour will raise your taxes. It's in their DNA. Your work, your car, your pension.
Thank you. Okay,
you name it,
sorry,
Labour will tax it.
His refusal to deny the increased tax policies and his constant flip-flopping on issues like corporate taxation have left Labour supporters scratching their heads. One moment he's promising to protect low-income earners, and the next, he's all in favour of hiking up taxes for the middle class. Things are getting worse every day under this government.
Election campaign. We all remember Sir Keir Starmer saying this.
We will not raise tax on working people. No tax rises for income tax, for national insurance, for VAT. We will not raise income tax. We will not raise national insurance. We will not raise VAT.
Quite a lot of promises and even more U-turns. Truly a classic Starmer move. It's almost as if Starmer is running his economic strategy by throwing darts at a board. The indecisiveness doesn't just make him look weak, it makes him look clueless. And when you're trying to win over voters who are already skeptical, cluelessness is not the way to go. Well, if you think that was bad, wait till you realize that the crime crisis is worse.
Since 2010, crime down by 50% under the Conservative government, Mr. Speaker. 20,000 more police officers, we've given them more powers, and we've toughened up sentencing, all opposed by Sir Softy over there. He attended 21 sentencing council meetings that watered down punishments. That's why they call him Sir Softy. Soft on crime, soft on criminals. Yeah.
Starmer's handling of crime is another issue that's driving his numbers straight into the gutter. You can't exactly run a country if you're not even willing to run a tight ship on public safety. Rishi Sunak wasted no time labelling him Sir Softy for his weak stance on crime, and to be honest, the nickname is starting to stick. This particularly comes as a betrayal when you consider what Starmer said before the elections.
Because whatever the crime, antisocial behaviour, hate crime, serious violence, it's always working people who pay the heaviest price. Working class communities who have to live under its shadow. That's why tackling crime, law and order will always be important for my Labour Party. Fighting crime is a Labour cause.
Is fighting crime a Labour cause, or is crime rising and Labour is the cause? When violent crime is on the rise and people are afraid to walk the streets, the last thing they want is a leader who seems more interested in protecting criminals than law-abiding citizens. Under Starmer's leadership, the Labour Party has adopted policies that are more about rehabilitation and leniency than accountability. Don't get me wrong here, rehabilitation is all well and good, but when you start releasing prisoners early, it puts us all at risk. Naturally, people protest this insane increase in crime. But in another spectacular screw-up, here's what Starmer had to say about it.
The disorder is intolerable. It is incapable of justification. It's clearly racist, and it does not represent the modern, forward-looking Northern Ireland that I know that this place is.
People were protesting the ever-increasing immigration rates and the crime that follows suit. Starmer was quick to label them all as mindless racists. And let's just say it wasn't a good PR move. His continual leniency towards crime has made things much worse. Sure, we all want people to get a second chance, but how about focusing on keeping the streets safe first? You know, priorities. Starmer's approach feels like trying to plug a sinking ship with a sponge, ineffective and a bit ridiculous. Speaking of which, his next promise was about illegal immigration. Needless to say, the way he's handling the process is utter buffoonery. He doesn't even have a clear plan and was exposed on national television over it.
You're sitting there with tens of thousands of people. But just
when
let me finish.
illegal migrants
With
come
tens
to
of
our country,
thousands of people
what will
who
you do
haven't
with them?
processed
It's
their
a very
claims.
simple question.
Well,
I can tell people what I will do with them. I will put them on planes to Rwanda
How
because they
long?
shouldn't be able to
300
stay.
years.
What will you do with
300
illegal
years.
migrants who come
Honestly,
to our country?
his-
What will you do with them? It's a simple question.
His plan is
What
to
will you do with them?
They need to be processed at the moment.
Processed?
They're not. These
Which
claims
means giving
are not
them,
being processed.
to be clear, will mean
It can't be that hard to state a plan if you have one. But immigration is the topic that can make or break a politician. And in Starmer's case, it's breaking him. Labour's immigration policies are about as stable as a house of cards in a windstorm. The public has grown tired of hearing the same old vague rhetoric about compassion and smashing the gangs without any real solutions being offered. All the while, the situation keeps getting worse. Take a look at the staggering data.
Good evening. Well, I hate to say I told you so, but I did say back in 2020 that unless we started deporting people that illegally crossed the English Channel, the numbers would simply go up. Over the course of the last 2 days, 1,100 people have crossed the English Channel. There was a moment this morning during which there were 11 dinghies at the same time out in the English Channel. We've gone through 20,000 for the year. That is higher than we were at this point in 2022, which was the previous record year that finished up with a total number of 48,000.
Starmer's reluctance to address the concerns of those who feel Britain's immigration system is being taken advantage of is costing him dearly. It's not about being anti-immigration, it's about having a fair and efficient system that works for everyone. But instead of a clear and concise plan, Starmer seems to be walking a tightrope, afraid to alienate either side of the debate. And guess what? It's alienating everyone.
There have been protests, riots. There are millions of people who are angry, and immigration is now the top issue facing the country for most people, according to the latest YouGov polling. But the now Chancellor Rachel Reeves knew we'd end up here. In 2016, she said, riots could sweep Britain if immigration is not curbed after Brexit. Labour grandee, former Labour Minister Dame Margaret Hodge has just said, we're all at fault that we've always been too frightened to talk about immigration. They all know it, we all know it, and yet we've got silence from Downing Street.
Just knowing that a situation exists isn't enough. It's now the biggest issue that plagues us, and under Starmer it has been getting progressively worse. The only thing worse than taking a firm stance is not taking one at all, and Starmer's wishy-washy approach is backfiring. If you thought Starmer's problems ended with the economy, crime and immigration, think again. His own party is turning against him.
Breaking tonight, is Labour on the brink of civil war? Reports suggest that Sir Keir Starmer is set to suspend 7 Labour MPs who rebelled to vote in favour of scrapping the 2-child benefit cap.
A huge number of people are turning against him from within his own party. It's a leadership coup waiting to happen. Labour's internal divisions are boiling over, and Starmer is losing control of the narrative. Take the recent scrapping of the winter fuel allowances. That's the major thing that pushed everyone off the edge. The cracks in the Labour Party are starting to show, and it's only a matter of time before those cracks turn into a full-blown civil war.
A huge week. So we're going to have the vote on that winter fuel payment cut tomorrow. And it sounds as though there are about 50 Labour MPs who aren't happy with Keir Starmer's policy. About 30 of them are actually considering voting against the government or abstaining.
Labour MPs were furious when Starmer refused to push back on government cuts that left many working-class families in the cold. Instead of standing up for his core voters, Starmer seems more interested in appeasing the trade unions. That decision didn't sit well with the Labour left, and they're making their dissatisfaction known. Sir Keir's not pleased by that, though. He has started a full-blown war within his own party and is punishing anyone who dares to disobey.
There is a significant whipping operation underway, and people are feeling, Labour MPs who are unhappy are really feeling the strength of that whipping operation. Many of them feel if they were to vote against the government, they would be stripped of the whip. And I was in Parliament this afternoon and I saw one Labour MP literally begging another Labour MP not to even abstain, because they said, if you abstain, you still might lose the whip.
Let's take a moment to appreciate the irony here. Starmer, who has repeatedly been criticised for being soft on crime, seems to be taking a much tougher stance on internal dissent. Yes, you heard that right. Starmer may not be able to deal with rising crime rates, but he's certainly cracking down on Labour MPs who dare to rebel.
He thinks that he's gone in strong by, cracking down on the rioters. He's got to follow through now with cracking down on his staff to maintain power, because, let's be honest, there are lots of people in the Labour Party that would like to be leader other than Starmer, and that rebellion will come soon enough, and this is why he's taking such a hard line now.
In the past few weeks, we've seen multiple MPs getting sidelined, suspended, or outright punished for speaking out against Starmer's leadership. The Labour leader's crackdown on dissent within his party is as swift as it is hypocritical. After all, if he was as tough on crime as he is on people who disagree with him, maybe he wouldn't be in this mess in the first place. Alas, he's not, and the public isn't having any of it. Things are getting much worse, but so are Starmer's approval ratings. He's plummeting to rock bottom, and it shows.
I was very disappointed with Keir Starmer's speech, as I think a lot of people were. We should also just note, this isn't my opinion, in the leadership ratings in all of our national polls, he's down by about 30 points since coming into power. I mean, this guy is quickly becoming one of the most unpopular prime ministers that we've had in a long time. In fact, as I'm talking to you, only a couple of hours ago, we had a new poll out this evening showing that compared to when Labour won the election at the beginning of July, Keir Starmer's ratings are down 36 points.
It's not just the internal strife that's making things worse for Starmer. The British public is starting to turn on him too. Starmer's approval ratings have taken a nosedive. Voters are losing confidence in his ability to lead, and the once promising honeymoon period is officially over.
More than half of Brits have a very different view to others. Believe the UK is heading in the wrong direction under Labour, according to this polling, in a sign that the new government's honeymoon period is coming to an end, if it even began. The Ipsos survey found the Prime Minister's net rating has slumped from 7 immediately after the election to 0. It comes as Labour is accused of being under the thumb of its trade union paymasters, with concerns over donations to MPs and strike deals.
It turns out that being a political chameleon who changes colours depending on the audience doesn't really inspire trust. Go figure. Starmer's inability to take decisive action on key issues like public spending and national security has left voters feeling disillusioned. They expected a leader who could make bold decisions, but instead, they got someone who's more interested in playing it safe. As the saying goes, you can't please everyone, but Starmer's trying his hardest to do just that, and it's backfiring spectacucularly.
So you're not surprised that Starmer's favourability rating, as it's called, is 0 at the moment?
No, I'm not surprised at all. I don't think he was ever popular. He has sort of abandoned his base.
At this point, it's becoming increasingly clear that the British public is done with Starmer. His leadership has been one disappointment after another, and voters are starting to realise that they've been scammed. The idea of Starmer being the one to lead Britain out of its current challenges is laughable at best. The man can't even keep his own party in line, let alone steer the country in a new direction.
They don't really care what you and I think, because they reckon they've got a 170-seat majority and they'll ride roughshod over the British people. But I think they're in for a shock, because the British people aren't stupid. And as the way you set it out, we can see precisely what they're up to, and they will be held to account. And ultimately, you can't silence the people.
We're not stupid, and stupid Starmer keeps making Britain worse every day. In the end, Keir Starmer is a man who had the perfect chance to be successful but squandered it with indecisiveness, weak policies, and a complete lack of direction. His handling of crime, immigration, and internal party dissent has left voters feeling betrayed, and his approval ratings are reflecting that. Labour is spiralling out of control, and if Starmer doesn't get a grip soon, he'll be out of a job. Which is why he's attempting to punish and silence people who speak up against him. But we will not be silenced. It is our right to demand accountability. It's a demand that you can join in on by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Let's make sure our burning questions are answered by these politicians.